The anime opens with the protagonist Taku completely lost and surrounded by blinding light. He asks the obvious question, "Where am I?" as if the light itself would answer. His last memory was of being swallowed by this mysterious glow, and now he found himself in an unfamiliar place. Moments later, a woman named Nolan appeared and explained the situation. She apologized, admitting that Taku's arrival was a mistake. He wasn't supposed to be part of the summoning. Out of Taku struggling to piece everything together, Nolan clarified that the summoning process wasn't as precise as it sounded. It randomly pulled individuals from different worlds, and he had been an unintended casualty of the spell. Once she realized the blunder, she resorted to unconventional magic to isolate him and bring him to her. She went on to admit that the summoning spell was flawed and extremely dangerous. It had even been banned because it could destabilize the world, but some reckless kingdom decided to use it anyway. She tried to stop them, but things spiraled out of control. Taku asked about the others who had been summoned with him, hoping for a silver lining. Nolan told him they were sent to the correct location because they were legitimate summonings. That was when Taku let out a sigh. "So, I'm just a mistake," Nolan confirmed it, leaving him more frustrated. He demanded to be sent back home immediately, but she told him it wasn't possible. His physical body had been destroyed during the summoning. Taku's confusion turned to panic as he asked, "What do you mean I don't have a body?" He looked down and saw that he was nothing more than a glowing orb of light. Nolan explained that his body couldn't survive the process and apologized again for the disaster. Taku, feeling his frustration boil over, told her that apologies wouldn't fix anything. He wanted to know how he was supposed to live now. Nolan suggested he adapt to his new form and start a new life in this world, as returning to his old one wasn't an option. Taku, still grasping for solutions, asked if he could at least be sent to the holy city of Cydonia. Nolan said it was possible, but warned that life there was difficult, especially for someone summoned by accident. Wanting to make up for her mistake, she proposed sending him to a different place with a new body and a special blessing. When Taku asked what kind of blessing, she described it as being similar to powers from video games and anime, something she thought might suit him. She told him he could begin this new life by saying the word status. Reluctantly, Taku said it, and a glowing screen appeared. It displayed his name, age, and a blank profession. Noticing the blank space, Taku insisted that his old job be listed, as if clinging to it would make this nightmare any less ridiculous. Nolan took the time to explain the world's elaborate job system, treating it like a casual job fair for newly summoned residents. Takumi, clearly not thrilled about the idea of being an adventurer, requested a non-adventurer job. Nolan, playing the role of a magical career advisor, granted him some handy skills and sent him off to start his new life. Takumi, feeling more like a disgruntled tourist than a hero, crash-landed on the continent of Asgard and immediately grumbled about how awful the whole experience was. Needing a moment to collect his thoughts, he wandered to a nearby river to take a breather beside the fresh flowing water. It was there he caught a glimpse of his new face for the first time. The perfected, generic Isekai protagonist look. Dressed in typical aristocratic clothes and carrying a bag that might actually be useful, Takumi decided to open it. Inside, he found food supplies, water, and some gold coins, basic necessities covered thanks to Lady Nolan's magical welcome package. Grateful to Lady Nolan for his decent start, Takumi decided to check his status menu to see what skills he'd been gifted. The system menu displayed his blessings, including one from Lady Nolan herself. This worried him because in this world, everyone's skills and blessings were visible to all. Having a goddess's blessing would make him stand out like a sore thumb. To avoid unwanted attention, Takumi decided to hide his blessing from public view, along with his item box, which could also be seen as a cheat item. Never having used magic before, he was curious to see if he could actually pull it off. Not keen on using flame magic in the wild forest, he opted for a water spell instead, successfully generating a ball of water. Encouraged, he then tested wind and rock magic, both of which seemed pretty handy for combat. Getting accustomed to his new body, Takumi set out to find a village and stumbled upon some high-quality wood, which he instantly turned into a spear using his blacksmith skill. Next, he used his appraisal skill to gather rich medicinal plants, just in case of emergencies, and stored them all in his other dimensional item box. Suddenly, a young girl named Molly burst out of the rushes, being chased by a huge, ferocious rabbit. She hid behind Takumi, pleading for his help. True to his word, Takumi didn't let her down. He used his spear to literally one-shot the horned rabbit in the head, unlocking the warrior job for him, even though he'd made it clear he didn't want to be a fighter. He checked to make sure Molly was okay and learned that she had come to the woods to collect medicinal herbs for the nearby village. With his goal being to find a village, Takumi decided to tag along with Molly. He stored the slain rabbit in his item box right in front of her, forgetting that flaunting his cheat skills could attract unwanted attention. Meanwhile, back at the Holy Sidonia Empire, 3 high schoolers suddenly found themselves in a large hall, greeted by a cloaked woman who declared them the new heroes of the world. Elizabeth, ever the drama queen, introduced herself to the high schoolers as the first empress of the Holy Sidonia Empire. With a grand flourish, she removed her cloak to reveal a face so unsettling it could have been a villain audition. Akane, one of the summoned heroes, accidentally triggered her blessing from Lady Nolan. This gave her an immediate gut feeling that Elizabeth was not the kind of person you'd trust with your life or lunch money. Meanwhile, Takumi and Molly had arrived at Board Village, which, contrary to its name, was brimming with activity. Molly's parents, Banga and Martha, were profusely thankful to Takumi for saving their daughter from the ferocious rabbit. When Takumi politely asked if he could stay for a while, they didn't just say yes. They started building him a house. Takumi was stunned. Who builds a guy a house just for asking to crash for a few nights? Shocked but not one to turn down free real estate, Takumi decided to help out. He tried using magic to level the ground, but his lack of experience with mana management landed him flat on his face. The villagers, impressed by his magic but concerned for his well-being, assured him they'd handle the construction. In record time, his house was finished, complete with furniture. Takumi settled in and, being the overachiever he claimed not to be, decided to channel his tiny brain into blacksmithing. Using a mix of iron ores, including some magical ones, he experimented with alchemy to melt and mold them into ingots. Normally, this would require a massive furnace, but Takumi wasn't about to let physics ruin his fun. Buoyed by his success, he began dreaming up other creations. Unfortunately, he didn't know when to stop, and Molly found him passed out from mana exhaustion later that evening. Molly fetched help, and Martha immediately scolded Takumi for overworking himself. Banga, more practical, handed him a healing potion. Fully recovered and utterly unbothered by Martha's lecture, Takumi resumed his alchemy experiments. Under strict supervision, he crafted utensils and tools for the villagers. He even collaborated with the local blacksmith to forge a new spear. Later, Takumi asked Banga for a few potions to study, explaining he wanted to make his own using the medicinal herbs he'd gathered. Banga, mildly confused about why Takumi wanted to reinvent the wheel, agreed. After some messy but enthusiastic experiments, Takumi managed to create potions of varying colors and strengths, though he couldn't figure out why they differed. Determined to improve, he ventured into the woods for more herbs, but curiosity got the better of him. He bit into an unknown leaf, which turned out to be poison. Classic. In the brink of joining his ancestors, Takumi used healing magic to save himself. Just as he was recovering, he turned around to find a massive armored boar with glowing red eyes. Clearly not here for a friendly chat, the boar charged. Takumi grabbed his spear, but quickly discovered it was no match for the creature's ironclad hide. His first attack bounced off, and his second attempt shattered the spear entirely. Dodging the boar's relentless attacks, Takumi tried wind magic, then rock magic, but nothing worked. As the boar prepared for a finishing blow, Takumi noticed an injured poison spider nearby. Initially worried it might attack him, he quickly realized it was too hurt to pose a threat. The boar charged again, but the spider leapt into action, creating just enough of a distraction to save Takumi's life. With the boar still relentless, Takumi dug deep into his alchemical bag of tricks. He leapt into the air and used a decomposing magic technique to land a devastating blow on the boar's head, finally killing it. Exhausted but victorious, Takumi turned his attention to the spider, which was in even worse shape after intervening. Using healing magic, he patched up its wounds. Before Takumi could leave, a system notification popped up, informing him he had to tame the spider. Stunned by the idea of taming a poisoned spider, he asked if it would like to come with him. To his surprise, the spider agreed. Naming it Maple, Takumi watched as it evolved into a larger, more formidable version of itself. In a high-profile New York Times article on the situation, Takumi wrote, "Returning to the village with Maple and the defeated boar, Takumi caused a stir. The villagers were amazed by his feat and even more shocked that he'd tamed a poison spider. Amid the celebration, they prepared a feast with the boar's meat and handed Takumi its uneatable parts, materials he could sell in the city. As the villagers praise Takumi for bringing new energy to their lives, the scene shifts to Nolan, who observes Takumi from above. She mused to herself, 'He's doing well now,' and silently encouraged him to keep going. Her friend appeared beside her and asked, 'What do you wish for Takumi?' Nolan hesitated before replying, 'I had to do something different to get my life back on track.' Her friend reminded her, 'You gave him a new body, your blessing, and sent him a whole year into the past, long before the Cydonia Empire cast its summoning spell. Surely you must have something in mind for him.' Nolan softly replied, 'I don't have a specific wish for him,' before turning her gaze back to Takumi.
The next day, Takumi was scolding Kiad, his spider companion, for tying him up in her web while he slept and for turning the whole room into a silk fortress. Kiad apologized, saying she felt lonely and wanted to spend more time with him since he was always busy. Feeling a little guilty, Takumi admitted he'd been neglecting her because of his obsession with crafting potions and tools. He promised to take a break to hang out with her. Overjoyed, Kiad jumped on him, just as Martha walked in with food. The scene? Awkward. Takumi quickly explained that Kiad wasn't trying to eat him, but Martha was more interested in the silk-filled room. Seeing its potential, she used it to make some clothes that turned out stunning. The ladies explained that spider silk was a luxury material prized by nobles, and Takumi had no clue he'd been sitting on a gold mine. Martha asked Kiad for more elastic silk, and the spider delivered. But when Takumi invited Kiad to play, she flipped the script and said she was now too busy. Takumi laughed it off, glad she was having fun, and went back to his potion work. While working, Takumi realized it had been almost a month since he'd arrived in the village. He'd soon need to move to the big city for alchemy studies, but before leaving, he wanted to leave a lasting mark on the kind folks here. Later, Takumi visited Bobon the blacksmith to pick up his armor. Bobon pointed out his boots were terrible for trekking in monster-filled forests and insisted on fixing them. Takumi, playing coy, said he was just a crafter, not a fighter, but Bobon wasn't buying it. He knew Takumi often wandered into the woods and wasn't just a regular potion maker. Then, Bango dropped by to check out the armor and gave Takumi some life advice. For his craft to truly shine, he needed to move to the city where materials and buyers were abundant. Bango had even arranged a ride for him, with merchants from Bolton arriving next week. Takumi was touched by everyone's support and decided it was time to move on. Takumi visited Martha, who was about to throw away a horned rabbit that Bango had hunted. The rabbit's meat was delicious but risky to eat due to parasites. Takumi used his rare purification magic to make it safe. Martha was impressed by his ability to use light magic, a skill so rare that people could make fortunes from it. She warned him to keep it under wraps in the city, as it might draw unwanted attention. Before leaving, Takumi dedicated his last week in the village to improving it. He built a strong wall and upgraded production tools, making the place safer and more efficient. When the merchants finally arrived, Tapik, the lead trader, was amazed by the village's transformation. Takumi handed over 100 healing potions to Banga for the villagers' use before setting off for Belton. Pekeg was holding one of Takumi's healing potions like it was the Holy Grail, admiring how it sparkled in the sunlight. While he was busy geeking out, Martha and the villagers showed up to give Takumi a proper send-off. Molly asked where Kiad, the spider pet, was. Takumi said she was catching up on beauty sleep. Banga and Bowman gave him the usual macho advice to stay tough, while Martha handed over a tunic the villagers had made with Kiad silk. A homemade gift? Classic small-town vibes. Takumi got all emotional, bowing and thanking everyone for their kindness. As he boarded the carriage, you could see the waterworks starting. This was the first place he'd called home in Mildgard. A guy in the carriage casually pointed out how much everyone loved him, which, let's be honest, was obvious. The introductions started rolling in. Heth, the leader, kicked things off, followed by Riel, the sass queen, and Bogar, the bald brooding type who said nothing but radiated "don't mess with me" energy. Together, they made up the C-rank adventurer squad, Lion's Fangs, who were there to protect the caravan. Riel complained about how boring the trip was and said she was praying for a monster to spice things up. Riel noticed Takumi clutching his bag like it held state secrets. Naturally, she got nosy, and Takumi admitted it held Keed, his assassin spider. Riel, being the fearless type, peeked inside, and boom. Keed went full attack mode. Afterward, the spider cozied up to Bogar, who surprisingly didn't freak out and just held her like a kitten. Meanwhile, Pepik and the others asked Takumi about buying more of his magic potions, which seemed to be the real MVPs of this trip. Suddenly, the carriage stopped. Pepik looked like he'd seen a ghost, and the adventurers grabbed their weapons. Turns out, a horde of goblins had decided to crash the party. Riel finally got her wish and started sniping goblins from a distance, while Heath and Bogart jumped into the melee like pros. Meanwhile, two sneaky goblins tried to flank the carriage, but Rial wasted no time turning them into pincushions. After the fight, Rial suggested dissecting the goblins to collect their magic stones. The journey went smoothly after that, and 3 days later the caravan rolled into Bolton, the bustling city of Barkala. Takumi was wide-eyed and amazed. It was his first time in a big city, and everything felt shiny and new. Wasting no time, he headed straight to the Adventurers Guild with Lion's Fangs, who needed to report that their escort mission was a success. Takumi starts off needing to register at the Adventurers Guild so he can stay in the city, which includes officially listing his pet spider, Kaid. At the desk, he asks if there's an Alchemist Guild instead, but no luck. The receptionist tells him most people join the Adventurers Guild just to get an ID card. If Takumi's okay staying at the lowest rank, his registration won't expire, and he can do 1 easy quest per month. Not a bad deal for 0 effort, so he signs up, spider and all. Next, Takumi heads to Pepik's company to negotiate a deal for 100 potions. Pepik offers 10 silver coins per basic healing or stamina potion and 50 per mana potion. Doing some quick mental math, Takumi nearly faints. It's the equivalent of 7 million yen, and Pepik even says he gave him a beginner's discount because he's new in town. Takumi feels like this deal is too good to be true, but doesn't see any obvious scam signs, so he rolls with it. Pepik then asks about Takumi's living situation, suggesting he'll need a proper workshop if he's serious about potion production. Takumi admits he's broke, but Pepik insists on showing him a rental property. He sends his employee Thomas to escort Takumi to the place. Cue the shock. Takumi finds himself staring at a mansion and absolutely loses it, never imagining he'd live somewhere this fancy. Thomas casually drops the rent, 1 gold and 50 silver per month, way cheaper than Takumi expected. Takumi jokes that the place must be haunted, but Thomas assures him it's perfectly normal. Takumi spots a storage room he could use as a workshop and figures his potion profits can cover the rent. As Keed wakes up and asks where they are, Takumi tells her this is their new home. When Thomas asks if he's decided, Takumi agrees to take it. They finalize the deal, and Thomas promises to have everything ready for the move the next day. As they leave, a horrible smell hits Takumi. Thomas explains it's the city's sewer problem. Nobles use magical purification devices in their homes, but commoners just have to deal with the stink. Those devices are rare and expensive, dug up from dungeons or ancient ruins. Priests sometimes help purify the sewers, but it's just a temporary fix. The next day, Takumi moves in and sets up his workshop, postponing wall repairs for now. Instead, he focuses on crafting something crucial, a proper toilet. Using quartz and clay from Pepik's company, he mixes molds and uses magic to speed up the drying and firing process. After draining nearly all his mana, he levels up his alchemy and light magic and finally installs a top-notch magical toilet that purifies waste. Exhausted but proud, Takumi takes a moment to celebrate. Of course, peace doesn't last. Pepik shows up shouting for help. Turns out, Keed has cocooned the poor guy in spider silk. She insists it's a friendly welcome, but Takumi explains that only kids back in his village found that kind of prank funny. Pepik, oddly enough, seems to like the silk's texture. After freeing the merchant and apologizing, Takumi shows him the bathroom. Pepik is blown away by the magical toilet, which purifies waste and leaves only a tiny bit of residue. Paypek, impressed by Takumi's magical toilet invention, asks if the young man has a knack for light magic. Takumi, remembering Martha's warning to keep that under wraps, asks the merchant to keep it a secret. Paypek agrees but wastes no time ordering 100 more of those high-end toilets. Then, he casually suggests that Takumi get a slave contract. Why? Because Takumi's light magic skills are a jackpot, and leaving someone with that much value unprotected is like wearing gold chains in a goblin cave. The idea? A slave would act as both bodyguard and housekeeper, bound by contract to keep their mouths shut about Takumi's talents. Paypek drops some spicy lore. According to the Church of the Divine Light, which runs the Holy Empire of Sidonia, people with light magic are seen as chosen ones of God. They'd snatch Takumi up in a heartbeat to profit from his healing magic, especially since purification magic is usually reserved for the rich. Helping ordinary folks like Takumi is practically a crime in their eyes. Paypek has plans to help Takumi mass-produce his magical toilets while keeping his name off the radar. But when it comes to the slave idea, Takumi shuts it down, saying he's not about to own a human, no matter how practical it might seem. Before they can argue further, Takumi's guild card starts glowing with a notification. He has 1 month to complete a quest at his level. Realizing how overwhelmed he is, Takumi reluctantly admits he might need some help. Paypek asks if Takumi has time that day and drags him to Mulan Co., Bolton's most reputable slave market. While Paypek handles some business inside, Takumi steps into the garden and bumps into a woman. Before he can even say hello, she tells him to get lost. Meanwhile, the company owner, Mulan, introduces herself, and Paypek explains that Takumi is looking for a servant. Takumi hesitates because in his world, having a servant isn't even a thing. Mulan clarifies that in the kingdom of Barkula, servant contracts are very different from what he might imagine. Once a contract is signed, the servant is bound to serve their master, but there are strict protections in place. Servants are guaranteed food, clothing, and shelter, and masters are forbidden from forcing them to do anything not outlined in the contract. On the flip side, servants aren't allowed to spill any personal information about their master. This setup surprises Takumi. It's a lot more civilized than he expected. And it helps him warm up to the idea. Milan then breaks down the types of contracts. Some people become servants to pay off debts, with the contract ending when the debt is cleared. Others are prisoners of war who enter servitude as a way to survive. Then there are those captured illegally and forced into servitude, which is the most common case. Paypek thinks Takumi should go for a prisoner of war servant because they can't be released without the master's permission. Plus, since Takumi is a producer with unique skills, having a reliable servant would be a huge help. Takumi agrees, admitting he's drowning in work, managing the house, doing his production, and fulfilling Adventurers Guild missions all at once. He needs someone to handle the day-to-day tasks at his mansion. He also points out that he ventures into dangerous areas for materials, so a servant with combat skills would be ideal to accompany him. Mulan picks up on his needs and suggests he might actually need 2 servants. She introduces Jean-Marie, a girl kidnapped by bandits as a child who has no family left. Jean-Marie has been trained in reading, writing, calculations, and all sorts of household tasks. Takumi, feeling a little awkward, scribes his house layout: a living room, dining room, and kitchen on the first floor, and 4 bedrooms plus a bathroom on the second. He asks Jean-Marie if she's up for the job. Without hesitation, she confidently says she can handle it. However, she notices Takumi looks uncomfortable and asks why. Takumi, being Takumi, blurts out that he's confused about why someone as beautiful as her hasn't already been picked by a master. Jean-Marie, blushing and visibly flustered, explains it's because she's only skilled in domestic tasks and can't join a master on adventures. Clearly, Takumi's mouth has a way of making things awkward. Takumi, desperate to clear up any misunderstanding, quickly assures Maria that he didn't mean anything offensive and doesn't have unrealistic expectations. With that cleared up, Mulan moves forward with the contract. However, when it comes to the combat experienced servant Takumi's looking for, Mulan admits she doesn't have any available at the moment. Maria brings up Sophia, but Mulan shuts her down, telling her not to meddle, and sends her off to pack her things. Once Maria leaves, Takumi asks about Sophia, and Mulan reluctantly explains. Sophia is an elf who was captured during a war between the kingdoms of Triaria and Ugar over 50 years ago. The kingdom of Ugar was known for its elves, but Sophia has been a tough case. She's never signed a contract with anyone. She has a damaged left ear, limited use of her right hand and left leg, and her unique elven spiritual magic is sealed due to a curse. Mulan believes this curse has crippled her abilities, making her unsuitable as a fighter. Despite hearing all of this, Takumi introduces himself and starts checking her stats. To his surprise, Sophia is incredibly powerful, hitting level 64. The curse and her physical limitations are holding her back, but Takumi believes he can break the curse and unlock her full potential. Mulan comes back to check on Takumi's decision, and he confidently says he wants to contract Sophia Sylvid. Mulan reminds him that her issues have gone unresolved for over 50 years, but Takumi doesn't waver. Amused, Mulan laughs and hands over Sophia to him. Sophia isn't thrilled, muttering under her breath about the decision. Takumi, noticing her frustration, asks her directly if she really doesn't want to come with him. Despite her clenched fists and anger, Sophia coldly replies that a servant's desires don't matter. With the contracts finalized, Maria expresses her gratitude to Takumi for hiring Sophia alongside her. Mulan performs the binding spell to seal the contracts, officially making them Takumi's servants. Maria promises to work hard and remain a loyal servant, while even Sophia reluctantly thanks Takumi, lowering her guard just a little. Mulan comments that she feels Takumi might actually be the right master for the two. When Takumi brings Maria and Sophia home, the moment he opens the door, he's tackled to the ground by Keed, his massive pet spider. Sophia immediately yells for Maria to stay back, ready to protect her from the monster. Takumi tries to calm everyone down, explaining that Keed is his pet. While Sophia eventually understands, she's still confused as to why her new master has a deadly spider lounging around the house. Takumi then shows Sophia a spacious room and tells her the one next door is for Maria. Both maids are shocked to be given their own rooms, with Sophia refusing at first, calling it too luxurious. Takumi insists that there are plenty of rooms for everyone and they should use them. To top it all off, Takumi points out the mansion's bathtub, which everyone can use. Sophia, trying to dodge the bath, suggests that Takumi should go first, but Takumi explains that the tub has a magical device that keeps it clean no matter what. Reluctantly, the servants try out the bath. Maria is overjoyed with her new life, while Sophia quietly processes everything. Maria admits she never thought Mulan would let them leave, as she'd rejected contracts with many wealthy masters before. She acknowledges Takumi as a rare, good master. Still, Sophia isn't fully convinced. She notices that Takumi's contract is missing key details like his birthplace and lineage, making her suspicious that he's hiding something. Later, the two servants are surprised to find dinner already prepared. While it seems like a kind gesture, Maria panics, thinking she's failed her duties since cooking is supposed to be her job. Takumi reassures her that he just cooked this one meal and that she'll take over the kitchen starting tomorrow. Maria insists on at least washing the dishes. After calming her down, Takumi invites everyone to sit and eat. Sophia remarks that it's traditional for masters to eat separately from their servants, but Takumi insists he doesn't want to follow those customs. He even asks them to stop calling him master and just use his name instead. The next day, Takumi picks up a magical parcel from the Pepek business company. While walking back, he notices a church he hasn't seen before. Curious, he enters to thank Goddess Nolan for all the blessings that have made his life so much better. However, he also wants to ask her why she warned him about the Holy Empire of Cydonia, which controls religion in this country. To his surprise, Nolan herself appears and takes him to the skies for a divine Q&A session. She explains that the Holy Empire of Cydonia and its Church of Divine Light have nothing to do with her. In fact, there are two religions in this world: the Church of Creation, which has worshipped her from the start, and the newer Church of Divine Light, which worships a non-existent god. Nolan reveals that the Holy Empire of Cydonia used force to spread its influence, and even activated the spell that summoned Takumi to this world. She didn't intervene because she wanted to respect humanity's free will. She warns Takumi that while her blessing will last forever, the part of it that has helped him meet good people and grow quickly will fade over time. From now on, his success will depend entirely on his own efforts. A year later, in the Holy Empire of Cydonia, a leader sits on his throne asking about the summoned heroes. His subordinate reports that the three heroes are training under Homer and Packard. While they were initially reluctant, Elizabeth convinced them to serve the Empire. Meanwhile, Akira and Yamato are honing their sword skills under intense pressure. When Yamato makes a mistake during training, a man mocks him, saying, "Is that all you've got?" This comment triggers Yamato's memory of being humiliated in a past fight by Ippon. Determined not to fail again, Yamato picks up his sword, ready to push forward and redeem himself. Akane gets called for training, but she flat out refuses because, surprise, she hates violence. That's when Elizabeth shows up to spin it as necessary strength to save the world. Akira jumps in with his knight in shining armor act, promising to protect Akane no matter what. Elizabeth lays on the compliments, saying Akane's friends are so inspiring, but Akane isn't buying it. She's convinced Elizabeth is shady and dangerous. Meanwhile, Takumi comes home and, as usual, his overly enthusiastic pet spider knocks him flat. Maria and Sophia rush over to help him pick up his things. But when Sophia reaches for a magical parcel, Takumi yeets it into his item box faster than you can say suspicious, making Sophia even more curious about what he's hiding. Later, Sophia decides to spy on Takumi in his workshop. What she sees is straight up weird. Takumi slicing his own arm with a knife dipped in some mysterious purple liquid and muttering, "Maria is terrible." That's it for Sophia. She bursts into the room, knocks Takumi down, and demands to know what he plans to do with Maria. But mid-rant, Sophia faints. Takumi checks her status and finds out she's exhausted and has an old wound on her hand. Wasting no time, he heals her wound and levels up his light magic in the process. After putting her to bed, Maria explains that Sophia's curse drains her energy from time to time. Takumi, not one to waste an opportunity, combines two of his spells, Dissipate and Extra Heal, and manages to heal Sophia's ear, which had been cursed for years. He's confident she'll be back to her old fighting self in no time. When Sophia wakes up, she tells Maria to run far away from Takumi because she still thinks he's shady, but Maria defends him, saying he broke her curse. That's when Sophia notices her mana is flowing freely again, something she hasn't felt in ages. Demanding an explanation, Sophia corners Takumi. He explains that he needed to level up his light magic to break her curse. The purple liquid she saw earlier? It's a poison made from the Nenum herb, which he got from Paypek. Takumi was cutting himself and healing repeatedly to level up his magic. Sophia also wants to know why he called Maria terrible. Embarrassed, Takumi admits it's because Maria accidentally mixed up and tossed some of his precious medicinal plants. Realizing how much effort Takumi went through to help her, Sophia has a change of heart. She pledges her loyalty to Takumi for the rest of her life, fully convinced he's a master worth following. That's it for episode 3. Thanks for watching my recap. See you in the next video. The following day, Takumi visits a big local library but seems irked. Alchemy seems to be dying, and at this rate, he imagines it is because it is over-reliant on the script of a long-dead magical civilization that greatly limits accurate translations. Luckily, Takumi's reincarnation has granted him the ability to comprehend every language of this world, which is a blessing. Upon getting back home, Maria remarks that she will for sure remember the most adorable moment she has ever seen, which is Sophia on her knees before the boy, as if a knight swearing to guard a princess for eternity. Kate wholeheartedly concurs with the delightful nature of this drama, whereas Takumi is not so happy with getting in the princess role in the tale. Afterwards, the alchemist completes the production of the toilet seats he pledged to Paypek and begins to think about taking a break from crafting. Maria inquires whether he will begin making something else, so he explains to her that he will, but also saying that he is contemplating a meandering trip. He intends to search for extraordinary materials and dishes, touristic places, and even some ancient ruins. Sophia is set to act as Maria's bodyguard while Maria is in charge of the house. Kate is curious about what is her business in this trip, so the owner reminds her that she is a pet, therefore she comes. Getting ready to be left home alone, Maria refuses to be left behind and begs to join her friends, but the master has to remind her that there are too many household duties that need to be done. Maria, having nothing to say, cries out, looking angry and miserable. Attempting to plead to him, the girl begins to argue that being left alone in the mansion would be even less significant than that isolated toilet in a hot desert. Takumi thinks to himself that she always does compare everything to toilets. Which is true, however, it really makes me worried to leave her alone in the house with Tifat's sorrowful expression. In hopes of finding something to make her change her mind, the alchemist firsthand uses his evaluation magic to check Maria's status. It surprises him because she has attributes with unique potential as a warrior, which is precisely what changes the boy's mind. Sophia feels her statement is fortified and brings up that she could train them both to use their powers effectively on this trip, which causes Takumi to finally cave in, allowing the younger maid to join them. He tells Sophia that it is indeed possible for them to be trained. Having that settled, it's now time to prepare for the trip. Takumi is interested to know what weapon Sophia prefers the most. She chooses a longsword, a 2.5-meter spear, a bow, and 2 knives. Surprised by the elf's request, the alchemist inquires if she needs a shield as well. She seizes the chance and refers to a smaller, lighter shield, known as a buckler. Later on, the maid is asked the same question. Given that she was trained to use short blades in the Mulan Company, a dagger or a short sword would fit her nicely. But Sophia points out her friend's attack power will be quite limited, so she offers to show the girl how to use a spear as well. At night, the protagonist sets aside some magic steel ingots for the forging of the equipment. You see, in this hidden world, not all metals are alike. The magical properties are still to be explored. The day after, spear training starts, and Sophia tells Maria to repeat some attacking actions, but now lower with her lumbar. At the same time, Takumi keeps crafting the weapons and nears completion of the spear blades. This work drains an incredible amount of his mana, but it also boosts several of his skills and classes. He adds a wing design to Sophia's weapon and flame artwork to Maria's. He then puts attack boosting and self-fixing enchantments on both. He ponders what to do with Maria's knives next. Given her role as a combat maid, he thinks it would be cool for her to keep these knives in sheaths on her thigh. In that moment, despite being far away, Maria gets an odd shiver on her thigh and feels she needs to cover up even though she's already dressed. Let's talk about that clever alchemist and blacksmith again. He needs to figure out the right size for the girl's armor, but he's too shy to ask them, so he comes up with an odd fix. He builds dolls of both girls. It's a bit weird, sure, but the guy feels more at ease working like this, instead of getting the two involved in the whole thing. After that, he thinks it'd be cool to use the shell and leather from the tough giant boar as material, plus fabric made from Cade's threads. For the style, the smart guy chooses to use his power as master to make armor he likes. Right after all the production, Maria and Sophia stand in their new armor. Maria thinks hers is so great she can believe it's real, and the elf points out that the outfit fit her as soon as she put it on. She just can't figure out how Takumi was able to make something that fits them so well. Cade almost lets slip that the guy used dolls, so Takumi changes the topic and stresses that the protection is very good because of the spider web used to make it. Takumi shows the weapons to the two, which are Sophia's sword and Maria's knives. At the end, he gives each a mithril magic ring, which will help them cast spells. Sophia points out, the mana cost must be high for crafting, but the blacksmith clarifies that he also improves his skills while making these items. This benefits him in both ways, as this work allowed him to gain ice and lightning magic. They then go to the Adventurers Guild to sign up the maids as adventurers. They get their rank identity cards, and Takumi uses this chance to register the trio as a group before they leave, intending to take on some ranky missions. Sophia reminds him that such low-level missions won't give him any experience points, but leveling up isn't his aim. In the middle of this, a group of rough-looking men comes over to bother the girls. They tell them to leave this weakling and see the world with real men like themselves. Since they're all rank D, they believe they can look after the girls much better than some pale kid with grandma hair. Takumi moves in front of them and confronts the tough guys, who can accept that such a young boy is attempting to stand up to them. Deep within his core, Takumi is dreading the situation, but he is smart. He puts on an effort to look unbothered as he is practically on the verge of shitting himself. Attempting to be of use, one of the larger kids socks the young lad square in the head, and while this happens, Takumi goes rigid, like his body is constructed out of steel. At this point, a man arrives to calm down the ruckus, and he tells the onlookers if the boy's arm was hurt by the little fellow over there. Takumi begins to unconsciously rub his chin while trying to cater to the knot stuck in his throat. In the meantime, while Maria attempts to argue that the unfortunate kid with the gash was guiltless, the man does not buy into that premise. So Hans, who attended to the group, comes to Takumi's benefit, claiming that it was the large juvenile delinquents that instigated the fight. The employee then informs them that this man is Barak, the master of the local guild. While Barak directs some medics to treat the stupid kid who punched his worker, he allows the kid who was punched to come with him. Once in the office, Takumi is bombarded with questions regarding what transpired, and he returns none, which proves useful. His senses dialed into the event thoroughly, only feeling the aftermath of the deep, dark void he was submerged in. Detecting signs of mana in the scuffle, the receptionist wails, "Have you all used magic?" Takumi is glad that the gentleman could sense the magic, but he does clarify that no magic was used. Rather, he took some coal from the item box and, after synthesizing it to diamond, put on its shape-shifted version, and then put it on his upper body. Nevertheless, Hans sees why Takumi made an initial visit to the guild searching for an alchemy guild. Takumi is lost on how these people he just enlisted into the guild want to promote, so the employee recommends the team to head to a few missions he would personally set them on to further their ranks faster. All three of them reluctantly agree. Without wasting time, Hans gives the team 3 basic missions. The first is to eliminate a goblin nest, the second is to take care of the remaining kobolds, and the final one is to gather merle herbs. During the initiation of the missions, Cade tells Sophia that there are 4 goblins waiting in ambush in the forest. They still have not been able to determine exactly where the final party of goblins are relative to the humans, but Takumi ruminates further and comes to the conclusion that all the missions he took on were rank G, or free classification, and the prize was 5 or 6 silver coins, which is not that bad. The issue is, though, they are encountering far too many goblins and kobolds than what was required. Sophia feels that there is a chance that a camp of those monsters are deployed close by and are led by a goblin general whose rank C. Mr. Takumi assumes that they are going to get a beating and should head home, but Sophia and Maria are convinced that they are able to cross this border and invade enemy territory. At the same time, Cade is ordering that she is about to evolve, so a little bit of rest is overdue, and the master puts her inside the tape portal. Sophia now inquires whether this was a mobile dimension, to which Takumi answers rather shyly that he was able to learn how to use it after his space-time magic reached level 3. Then they go into the goblin camp, and the elf estimates that they are about 300 or 400 goblins inside. Mr. Takumi is losing it even more and asks, do they really need to fight so many foes? But Sophia is certain they will eliminate a large part of these numbers with long-range magic. With that said, they enchant the rings and hurl them towards the horde while shouting spells, and the destruction that follows is beyond anything imaginable. As somehow anticipated, the Goblin General and the Goblin Knight suddenly emerge. Finally, no matter how scared he is, Takumi cannot delay any longer and plunges into the monsters using his magic. A few hours later, the party returns to the guild, worn out but content as they manage to complete all the assignments in just half a day. Receiving the news, Hans is taken aback and insists that the members come to meet the guildmaster. Now, Cade pops out of the portal and bluntly punches the master's bald head, flaunting her evolution. Suffice it to say that Sophia and Takumi are perplexed, but Maria is enthralled at Cade currently being in her favorite new phase and is beyond excited that she can finally speak to the redhead. On that note, Barak said he needed D-rank members for an extermination squad. As a final note, Hans tells the group that there are rewards to be distributed, and Takumi has finally earned rank E while the girls in the group are now at rank F. Once they get back home, she asks the master for some fabric pieces so she can fashion some underwear for herself and Sophia. Takumi doubts whether enough panties can be pulled from scraps, but Maria draws an explanation to prove it's not so complicated. Believing it was the norm, Takumi sketches a design for much shorter underwear. Though embarrassed by the idea, Maria insists he should stick with that style. While they're in the middle of this, Cade walks in to announce that Papek has arrived. It turns out Papek fainted the moment he saw the mutant spider, so Cade moved him to the living room to help him come around. After a while, when Papek is back on his feet, the businessman lets them know that Lord Bolton, Marcus Godwin, wishes to meet the Alchemist in order to discuss the magical purification device. Without wasting any time, they rush to the capital, and there the Lord demonstrates his surprise at the effectiveness of the device in stopping plagues and, feeling greatly indebted to Takumi, bows to him. Takumi finds it hard to accept such respect from a person who has so much power, but Godwin has no problem doing that as much as it is required to better his domain. On top of that, Takumi was able to defeat a goblin camp, which even the Knights of Bolton did not. For this reason, the Lord requests Takumi to take extra measures to protect himself, because the loss of the Alchemist would be a great blow to the society. He gives a last warning to Takumi not to relax too much for now, particularly with the possibility of being a target to the Sidonia Sacred Empire. A few days after this adventure, the boy is tired while Cade completes the underclothes he had ordered. He brings those articles to the girls, and they are surprised to learn that Takumi spent 3 days in the workshop making these garments. The girls rush to put them on, and when Takumi thinks they are going to undress, he sprints to his room and locks himself in. Once inside, he thinks he has gone insane just because Nolan's blessing is about to end. He envisions his inner devil telling him the reason he feels this way is because he wants to wear the bra and panties. The inner devil continues to provoke him and makes this claim even further, which in turn makes Takumi scream in terror. The next day, Takumi pulled off the ultimate flex. He invented refrigerators! He proudly explained to the girls that these magical ice boxes would keep food fresh, meaning no more eating questionable leftovers. The ladies were hyped, feeling the cool air coming from the fridge like it was the greatest invention of all time. Takumi, being the genius he is, made the fridges by combining iron, chromium, and nickel into stainless steel, then throwing in some enchanted cooling magic. But sadly, his fridge can't run Halo, so it's still missing one key feature. Maria, however, is over the moon because now she can cook with fresh ingredients anytime. Takumi plans to gift one fridge to Maria and sell the other 2 through PayPal. Once that's done, it's time for his next big brain project. Sophia is already suspicious, asking if he's about to cook up another crazy invention, but Takumi has a different plan: upgrading their gear. After their goblin battle, he realized their weapons could use some fine-tuning, so why not make some shiny new ones out of mithril and adamantite? Takumi heads to the guild to find a blacksmith who can handle these rare metals. Hans, the guild bro, tells him that only dwarves from Namstal can forge that stuff, but they're way too far away. Tough luck. Just when Takumi thinks he's hit a dead end, Hans drops some insider info. There's a city near Barkala with a mithril and adamantite mine. Problem? Only blacksmith guild members can enter. Solution? A totally legal loophole. If Takumi takes a monster extermination quest inside the mine, who's gonna stop him from pocketing some metal along the way? Before Takumi can act on this genius plan, the guildmaster pops up and drops another quest on him: wood gathering. The guild needs more timber for winter, and guess where the trees are? Yep, near the mine. Looks like Takumi just got volunteered for another errand. Oh, and there's more. The guildmaster also wants him to escort someone along the way. Takumi tries to dodge it, asking why the elite squad Lionfang can't handle it. Turns out they're busy, so, like it or not, he's stuck with the job. He asks Hans how long the trip will take. 7 days by regular horse, but only 4 if he rides a monster horse. Takumi is all for the monster horse plan, but plot twist, Lionfang already took all of them. Classic. Right then, Rio rolls up flexing about how he just killed a black buffalo and needs to drop it off before it rots. Since he's staying in town for the night, Takumi invites him over for a bath. Rio is way too excited about this bath offer, proving once again that good hygiene is a rare luxury in fantasy worlds. Takumi still has business with Paypek, and Rio tags along. While they're there, Takumi convinces Pampek to lend him a couple of monster horses in exchange for some of the ores he'll mine. Also, Pampek loves the fridge and wants more once Takumi is back. Meanwhile, back at Takumi's mansion, Sophia is getting paranoid because he hasn't returned yet, and she's not the kind of woman to just sit around and wait. That evening, as Takumi and Rio walk back, Rio suddenly senses someone eyeing them with serious hostility. He knows he's outmatched, so he grabs Takumi and bolts. But before they can get away, the attacker catches up and lands a kick straight to Rio's face. Rio enters Sophia, who has apparently gone full yandere mode. She assumes Ryo was trying to kidnap Takumi and is fully prepared to cut him down. Before she can, Takumi jumps in to clear up the misunderstanding. After hearing the explanation, Sophia awkwardly apologizes, and Ryo, despite nearly getting murdered, forgives her. But Ryu is still confused when they reach Takumi's house and he sees even more cute girls. He demands answers. Takumi explains that he needed a maid, Maria, a bodyguard, Sophia, and Maple the pet who randomly evolved. Ryo is devastated. His bro Bogar and Heath both have wives, and even Takumi is surrounded by women while he's still single. Takumi, of course, clarifies that he's not dating either Sophia or Maria. Riel tries his luck by asking Sophia if she'd be interested in going out with him, but she quickly shuts him down. Maria does the same, leaving Riel feeling pretty embarrassed. A little later, we find him sulking in the bath, while Takumi talks to Maria and Sophia about his next mission, mining mithril and adamantite. Sophia agrees that it's a good idea since treant wood is valuable. The group is on board, and Takumi decides they'll head out in 3 days. The next morning, Riel leaves to rejoin Lion's Fang, and Takumi gets to work making new equipment for their upcoming adventures. He gets his hands on a magic-draining tungsten carbide sword. It's already a great weapon, but it's too big to use in its current form, so Takumi decides to break it down. He uses his alchemy skills, but the sword resists him at first, making it a bit of a challenge. Eventually, Takumi breaks it down into 2 blades, each with the ability to drain mana from whoever they cut. He's happy with the result, though it leaves him feeling drained after all the effort. 3 days later, the group meets up with Pepek to get the carriage and head out. They're also joined by a guide named Gambo, who's ready to show them the way. They head to the forest to hunt treants, and Sophia spots one blending in with the trees. Takumi charges forward and takes it down, with Sophia and Maria backing him up. However, there are still plenty more to go. Instead of dealing with them one by one, Sophia suggests using magic, which speeds up the process. But then an elder treant shows up, and it's no ordinary fight. No matter how much magic they throw at it, the elder treant regenerates. The only way to take it down is by attacking its main body in one strike. Sophia tells Takumi to coat his sword in fire while she and Maria provide cover. Together, they manage to defeat the elder treant, finishing their treant hunt. Next, they arrive in Horus and visit the local Adventurers Guild, where they accept a quest to deal with mole monsters in the mines. These moles eat ores, and that's a huge problem. Soon enough, the group finds some mithril and adamantite ore, but their discovery attracts the mole monsters. Takumi has the idea to use light magic to blind the mole as soon as it appears, making the battle quick and easy. Sophia and Maria are a bit disappointed they didn't get to fight, but the mining trip is a success. Afterward, Takumi visits Gambo's shop to learn how to work with mithril and adamantite. He successfully creates some new gear, using magic to imbue the armor with powers that suit each of the girls' elements. Sophia and Maria are impressed with how light and durable their new gear is. Takumi also gives himself an armor enchantment called Thunderclap for increased agility, but when he tries to show off his speed, he ends up crashing face first into a wall. Classic. Takumi also shows off the new weapons he made, and Sophia asks him to make a shield to protect him more efficiently. Takumi agrees, but reminds her that her own life is just as important as his. Meanwhile, Nolan, who's been observing Takumi's progress, is happy with how strong he's becoming. He'll definitely need it for the battles ahead. A year later, Akira and Yamato, the other summoned heroes, finish their training and are sent on a mission by the king of Samander. They look pretty intense, almost too evil for comfort. Back in Takumi's time, he's just finished making the shield for Sophia. She feels a little guilty about how much it drained him and wishes he had someone to help him. Meanwhile, in the royal capital, Sidonia has heard about Takumi's magical toilets and the purification magic behind them. They don't know who he is yet, but they're planning to take action against him. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thanks for watching. In the days that followed, a messenger from Sidonia strutted into the throne room of Barcula, radiating self-importance. His mission? To complain about the kingdom using magical purification circles for sewage treatment. The Church of Divine Light had run to the Pope, insisting only they had the divine right to purify filth. The king of Barcula leaned back on his throne, unimpressed. If your god granted you this magic, surely you can make the purification circles yourselves? The messenger's face twitched. He had walked right into that one. Trying to salvage his dignity, he declared that using sacred purification magic on toilets was blasphemous. The king, having heard worse complaints, merely shrugged. The conversation ended with a dramatic threat. If Barkula didn't comply, all priests from the Church of Divine Light would be withdrawn. "By all means, take them," the king said with a dismissive wave. "Less bureaucracy for me." Takumi heard about this and wondered if angering a major religious institution was wise. Papek, however, wasn't concerned. Barkula wasn't a one-god kingdom. The Church of Creation, devoted to Nolan, thrived. Unlike the priests of Divine Light, who charged outrageous fees for healing, the Creation priests did it almost for free. Curious, Takumi asked who the Church of Divine Light even worshipped. The businessmen exchanged glances before mentioning a knot. Takumi shrugged. Religion wasn't his problem. What was his problem, however, was Papek informing him that the king wanted to meet him. Declining wasn't really an option. Seeing Takumi hesitate, Papek clasped his hands in mock desperation. "Please, my friend, do you want me to have an ulcer?" With no real way out, Takumi accepted. That evening, he informed his maids they'd be heading to the royal capital, Bakalodos. The ladies were ecstatic. It was their first big adventure. Takumi reminded them they had a week to prepare. Maria asked about the journey time. 7 days by carriage, he answered. That was all she needed to hear. She immediately started planning their supplies. Takumi had another idea. He wanted to enchant cloaks for Maria and Sophia with perception-blocking magic, just in case any unwanted attention came their way. He asked Papek to find dark elemental magic stones for the upgrade. At the street fair the next day, Maria casually mentioned that their master seriously underestimated himself. Sophia, agreeing completely, praised Takumi's skills, good looks, and talent. Maria shot her a suspicious look. "Wait a minute. Are you in love with Master?" Sophia nearly choked before making a hasty exit, an escape worthy of a trained assassin. Maria wasn't fooled. That elf had it bad. Meanwhile, Takumi visited the chapel to ask Nolan about this Annette, the so-called goddess of the Church of Divine Light. Nolan, clearly annoyed, scoffed. "There's only one goddess, and you're looking at her. But don't worry, you'll find out soon enough what Annette really means." Takumi had a problem. Cydonia, the Sacred Empire, was suddenly paying way too much attention to him. He suspected it had to do with Nolan's blessings, but she dismissed the idea. "Nope, they were interested in you from the start," she said. She admitted to using time magic when sending him here, placing him in the world a full year before the other summoned heroes arrived. Takumi, processing this like a bad plot twist, wanted more answers. Nolan pulled the classic divine move, "Oof, time's up," and sent him back without another word. Waking up in the chapel, Takumi grumbled about the goddess dodging his questions. Since he had no plans to meet those other heroes, why stress? Meanwhile, 10 months earlier in Cydonia, those very heroes were sweating through intense training. Back in the present, Takumi decided to spoil his party a little, gifting them enchanted cloaks. The girls loved them. He got carried away, showering them with compliments. Maria's sharp glare snapped him back to reality, and he clapped his hands to his head in regret. Shifting gears, he unveiled his next idea: a custom carriage. Why rent when we can own? The only catch? They needed a monster horse to pull it. Maria, barely holding back laughter, asked if Takumi even knew why Bolton was called the City of Adventurers. He did not. Sighing, she explained that Bolton was surrounded by monster-infested zones, including the Death Forest, where unicorns, purebred horses, and even griffins made regular monster horses look slow. That settled it. They were going to the Death Forest. As they traveled, Takumi wondered if Drake's horses were actually related to dragons. Maria said no, though their scaly bodies and big horns made them look like dragons playing dress-up. A wild wolf sprinted toward them, only to zip right past, ignoring the group. Takumi smirked. "Guess our cloaks work like a do not disturb sign for monsters." Sophia, eager for a fight, ripped off her cloak. "Let's train," Takumi groaned. The elf soon proved her point by one-shotting a giant boar. Maria, thrilled about all the extra meat, was already planning dinner when they stumbled upon a dead Trent. Takumi nearly fist-pumped. "Score! Free high-quoted wood for the carriage." Cade, meanwhile, wandered off and found a wounded dragon mare. When she tried to help, the mare blasted her with a laser beam. Instead of being offended, Cade remembered when Takumi saved her and decided to return the favor. Two giant ants emerged, the real culprits behind the mare's injuries. Cade webbed them up, but the mare fried them anyway. Unfortunately, their whole colony showed up. Thinking fast, Cade threw up a web barrier. Bad news? The ants started eating through it. Worse news? The barrier blocked her telepathic SOS to Takumi. As the ants broke through, Cade hugged the mare and braced for the worst. Then, scene change. Cade woke up to Takumi gently patting her head. Relief hit her so hard she nearly cried. The party explained why they hadn't responded. Her barrier had blocked all mana signals. Oops. Calmer now, Cade explained the mare's condition. Takumi tried to heal her, but the stubborn creature rejected it. Sophia tensed. "Something's coming. We need to move." Cade panicked at the thought of leaving the Drake mare behind, but Takumi reassured her. "Relax. We're taking her with us." He scooped up both Cade and the dragon horse and teleported them to his alternate dimension. Sophia sighed. "You do realize shoving a high-level monster into your pocket dimension without a proper contract is reckless, right? Not to mention the ridiculous strain it's putting on your body." Takumi, ever the stubborn one, waved her off. "Nah, I'm fine." And then, like a drunk trying to prove he's sober, his knees buckled and he face-planted into the ground. He reached for a potion to recover, but his trembling hands fumbled it. Before he could even swear, he was out cold. Half a day later, Takumi was still unconscious in bed. Sophia observed him with concern. Even in his sleep, he's keeping that dimension running. If Cade doesn't pull the dragon mare out soon, he'll shrivel up like an old raisin. Determined, she took his hand and pressed a soft kiss to his fingers, a direct link to Cade inside the alternate dimension. "Cade, we have a problem. You need to get that dragon mare out of there." Cade hesitated. "But if she suddenly pops up in a new place, she'll panic and wreck the place." Sophia sighed. "Well, if you don't, Takumi might actually die. So, how about setting up another barrier like the one in the forest? That way, she won't see the surroundings and won't freak out." Cade mulled it over before nodding. "All right, leave it to me." With that settled, Sophia turned to leave, but Maria stepped in. "Where are you going?" "Epic Company. I need to buy medicinal herbs for monsters." Maria smirked. "Nope. You stay here and take care of our unconscious idiot. I'll handle the shopping." Meanwhile, in the great void of unconsciousness, Takumi started to feel warmth in his left hand. He heard the voices of his companions. "Wait a minute. Am I dying?" Panic over, he bolted upright, gasping. His hand was still warm. When he looked down, Sophia was holding it. Her face flashed from surprise to relief. Maria, peeking through the door, giggled. Well, 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 would you look at that?" Takumi ignored her and smiled at his elf companion. "I'm really glad I met all of you." A quick check-in later, they all gathered near Cade's barrier. The dragon mare inside looked much better. Seeing this, Takumi crouched down. "All right, girl, how about you and I become friends, just like I did with Cade?" The mare tilted her head, then sparks of electricity crackled from her horn. A magic circle formed beneath her as Takumi activated his taming skill. The energy surged, and with one last pulse, the bond was sealed. With a grin, he cast a high-level healing spell, restoring the mare to full strength. Cade, bouncing in excitement, asked, "What's her name?" Takumi scratched his chin. "Well, I named you Cade because of the maple leaf on your abdomen, so let's go with Tsubaki, a camellia tree that stays green year-round and blooms with red and white flowers." Maria clasped her hands together. "Ooh, that's a beautiful name." The others nodded in agreement. Tsubaki leaned in and nudged Cade, who immediately threw her arms around the mare's neck. I was so scared when I was alone in the forest, but everything changed when Master saved me. Maria wiped an imaginary tear. Okay, this calls for a feast. I'm making a special dinner. Everyone cheered, because who says no to food? That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching.
Elsewhere, a beast girl named Reva, gifted with magic, is brought to a potential buyer. However, he quickly rejects her, seeing that her magic is weak and she lacks any useful skills. Desperate, Reva pleads that she will work hard and prove her worth, but the man refuses. He needs someone capable immediately. Burton, trying to comfort her, assures her that someone will eventually buy her. But as Reva lays her head on her pillow that night, she realizes he has been saying the same thing for a long time. Her thoughts drift to her younger brother, whom she left behind, and the promise she made, as to earn money and support their family. She had told him to take care of their mother until she could stand on her own. Yet despite her determination, she now feels like she has failed. Meanwhile, Maria and Sophia urge Takumi to take a break, but he brushes off their concerns and continues working. At the guild, Hans informs him that an unknown creature has been spotted in the city. The only clue they have is a rough sketch from witness descriptions, but its location remains a mystery. During their conversation, Takumi mentions he's there to register a new familiar. Hans, recalling that Takumi even registered a spider before, jokes that nothing would surprise him anymore. But when Takumi presents his latest familiar, a drake horse, Hans is stunned. He compares it to the mysterious creature's sketch and realizes it's an exact match. Hans immediately informs the guildmaster and pulls Takumi aside for a private discussion. Meanwhile, as Sophia walks through the streets, she recalls a conversation with Mulan about purchasing a slave. Mulan had told her that none fit her criteria, but promised to contact merchants in other cities to find the right one. Maria soon joins Sophia, bringing up Takumi's exhaustion. She worries that he's even forgetting to eat. Determined to help, Maria decides to cook something nutritious for him. Sophia offers to help, but Maria hesitates. Sensing her unease, Sophia asks if she's uncomfortable cooking together. Maria bluntly admits that she is. Amused, Sophia admits she would probably feel the same way if their roles were reversed. Maria then notices something different about Sophia. Her expression seems softer. She reassures her that her elegant and mature side is still beautiful. Embarrassed, Sophia quickly changes the subject, urging them to finish shopping so they can check on Takumi. However, when they arrive at Gambo's forge, they find Takumi collapsed on the ground from exhaustion. Gambo explains that Takumi was so happy working that he couldn't bring himself to stop him, but he warns that if Takumi keeps pushing himself like this, he might collapse for good. After regaining consciousness, Takumi finally completes his self-made carriage. He calls Tsubaki to pull it, and when Maria and Sophia step inside, they are stunned. Maria exclaims that the interior is magnificent, though Sophia thinks she's exaggerating. Inside, Takumi explains that he enchanted the carriage with spatial expansion, turning it into a true home on wheels. It has a bathroom, kitchen, and bedrooms for everyone. Excited about her new living space, Maria eagerly takes the reins of Tsubaki and rides toward their destination. As they travel, Sophia enjoys tea on the couch, amazed that despite their high speed, the carriage remains completely steady. Takumi asks if anything else should be added. Maria suggests installing blades along the sides. Curious, Takumi asks why. Maria simply replies, because it would look cooler. As they continue traveling, Tsubaki levels up and gains new abilities, making her even stronger. Later, while passing through the capital, they meet Papek, who eagerly inspects the carriage. Amazed by its features, he excitedly shakes Takumi, demanding details on how he built it. Seeing Papek getting carried away, Godwin steps in and tells him to calm down. Papek apologizes and Godwin praises Takumi's craftsmanship, even hinting that he would love to own such a vehicle. Dropping all subtlety, he offers to buy one for 100 platinum coins. Takumi quickly calculates, 100 platinum coins equal 1 billion yen. With that, their journey continues toward the royal capital, Biquilatos. As they travel, Godwin speaks of Takumi's incredible achievements and predicts he will accomplish even greater things in the future. However, he also warns that great talent attracts both admiration and danger. To protect Takumi from those with bad intentions, Godwin vows to stand by his side. When they arrive in Biquelatos, Papek approaches Takumi with an important proposal. He plans to present the king with a carriage similar to the one Takumi built. Godwin agrees, saying it would be the perfect way to showcase Takumi's extraordinary skill and gain the king's recognition. However, with the meeting just 5 days away, Papek doubts they have enough time to build another carriage. Instead, he suggests that Takumi start working on it once they return to Bolton. However, Takumi interrupts, confidently stating that he can build the carriage within 5 days. Moreover, if he builds it in Bolton, he would have to transport it all the way back to Biquelatos, which would be a hassle. Hearing this, Papek offers to help find a spacious place where Takumi can work. Later, when they reunite with the girls, Takumi mentions a company called Palom, which Papek recommended. Sophia immediately recognizes the name, explaining that the company is owned by a man named Burton and is known to be very reliable. Despite having Pak's support, Sophia warns that Takumi will need more people to assist him in constructing the carriage, as he has already overworked himself on previous projects. Takumi insists that he is not tired. Sophia advises Takumi to consult the Palom company to see if there is someone who can assist him. After talking with them for a bit, Takumi realizes he has been pushing himself too hard and decides to follow Sophia's advice. He then goes to the Palom slave trading company in search of an assistant who understands alchemy. Upon hearing this, Burton explains that Takumi will need someone with magical aptitude. While the two negotiate, Maria approaches Sophia and informs her that Ked has disappeared after wandering around the building. Concerned, Sophia goes looking for her and suddenly comes across Rav collapsed on the floor. Startled by the scene, Sophia tells Ked to stop wandering around alone and then apologizes to Rav for the scare. However, Sophia reassures her that Ked is actually a kind girl and wouldn't harm anyone. At that moment, Sophia notices an old book on the ground. Rav explains that it is her magic book, containing an encyclopedia of alchemy fundamentals. After talking with Rav, Sophia picks up Ked and heads downstairs to leave the building. On the way, she runs into Takumi, who is still searching for a candidate to work with him. He asks Sophia to accompany him, and soon they are introduced to Rav. Rav starts feeling insecure, believing that Takumi will refuse to buy her, which would mean she wouldn't be able to help her family. Takumi then asks if she is interested in alchemy. Excited, Rav eagerly nods, but then lowers her head, remembering that she still can't practice alchemy. Sophia tells Takumi that Rav has been learning different types of magic on her own, which proves her determination. She also mentions the alchemy book Rav was carrying. Upon discovering what book it is, Takumi decides to test her. He hands her a drawing of a magic circle and asks what it does. Seeing this as an opportunity to prove her worth, Rav tries her best to answer but ultimately admits she doesn't know. Feeling defeated, she starts crying, believing she has failed once again. However, to her surprise, Takumi extends his hand and tells her that he would love to have her by his side. They finalize the deal, and Rav asks Takumi to send all her earnings to her family. Surprised by her decision, Takumi questions her. Rav explains that her village is very poor and that she needs to make this sacrifice to give her family a better life. Hearing this, Takumi warns that if she gives away all her money, she will remain a slave forever, as she will never be able to improve her own life. However, Sophia reminds him that Rav will continue learning new techniques and advancing in alchemy. Once she masters her craft, she will be able to earn a living on her own. Finally, Takumi introduces the new servant to the other girls, who excitedly swarm around her like she's a new toy. Maria and Ked eagerly introduce themselves. Seeing their warmth, Riva starts to feel that she might truly belong here. Meanwhile, in the Holy Empire, the rival nation of Barkala, leaders are planning a direct attack. However, the king's daughter intervenes and warns her father that the heroes are about to arrive. Instead of attacking recklessly, she suggests spreading a rumor that someone has disrespected the Church of the Divine Light. That alone will be enough to incite the anger of the faithful. The princess argues that only after this should the Divine Light Squadron take action. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. See you in next video.